Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, and that's time for Friday Reads. It's been a very, very busy Friday for me, even more so than usual. My whole morning, even though I was, prone in bed and completely relaxed with a sleeping schnauzer on my chest, the whole morning was taken up with very bookish activity, bookish, feverish, bookish back and forth emailing with editors. And then I went out and did bookish errands, including spending time at a certain Boston-based newspaper. And then right after that, I met up with a fellow booktuber, Sarah from Steeped in Books, is visiting from Canada, and she met me at the Christian Science Monitor, and we drove out to the Book Rack in Arlington, a used and new bookshop, just a wonderful, perfect demonstration of a community bookshop, where the phone was always ringing with customers, new and old customers wondering if anything new of interest has come in for them, and knowing that the staff knows them. What is that? There we go. And Sarah and I did a huge amount of romance shopping at that store, and then we came back and spent time with the Bean and glommed over all of our books and talked more books. But I realized, when all that was over and I was settling in for what turns out to be a rather crushing night of work, I realized I hadn't made a Friday Reads video yet. Can't have that. Can't have that. So I've got a few books to show you here, and two of them I've already read. All the rest I have not. And I want to start off, of course, with romance, because this has been a very romancy type day. When I was spending time with Sarah and we were talking about romances and we were buying romances, I was reminded that when I'm not paying attention, I tend to settle into a very comfortable rut when it comes to romance. I really like Regency romances, whether they're the new kind, the opulent, full-length kind with plenty of explicit shenanigans, or whether it's my beloved Regency romances, which are older and more programmatic. I love Regency romances, especially Signet Regency romances. I found a ton of them today, just a ton of them. But spending time with Sarah, talking with her about books and seeing her own picks in romance reminded me she's a much more adventurous reader in the world of romance than I am, much more experienced in all the different kinds of stuff that's out there. And so, in addition to the piles and piles of Regency romances that I bought today, I also bought one romance that wasn't a Regency romance. I got a Western. And that's the first thing I'm going to read, just to get it off the docket, and because it's not... I tend to read these Regency romances in gulps. I tend to read them as palate cleansers, and I also tend to read them on the subway. And I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do any of that with this one. Instead, I'm just going to read it here. It's from the 1990s, and it's a Western by Lisa Higdon called Unforgiven. Can't imagine what drew my eye to the cover. But this is the story of Caitlin McDonald, who's hungry for adventure and found it in the arms of the rugged stranger she met one sultry night in Eden, Texas. Cole Thornton's lingering kisses set her pulse racing, even when she learned he was a member of an outlaw gang and worked for an enemy of her father. So that's going to be one of the first things that I read this weekend. Then we'll get to the two that I've already read. One is a paperback release of a book that we've seen on this channel. We saw it last year. This is by Alan Stern and David Grinspoon, and it's Chasing New Horizons. This is the paperback that comes out probably very soon. I'm not sure if this sheet will tell me. But this is all about the New Horizons mission that in 2015 flew 30,000 miles past Pluto at the very edge of Earth's solar system, and gave reams of photographs and information that is still being deciphered. Okay, do I have anything here? Anything at all? No. Oh, all right. Late May. So this comes out soon. I've already read it, but I'm going to read it again because I thought it was just thrilling, just absolutely thrilling. Because New Horizons didn't crash into Pluto. It took all that information and then headed out of the solar system for who knows where, for infinity. And this is just a wonderfully told adventure story, only it's real. So, and then the next one that I'm going to read is also a reread. But it's one of those things that the publishing industry crops up regularly in my path. This is the sort of thing that makes me think and say on this channel that I really have no business buying used books. I really don't. Because virtually everything is going to come to me. I try now when I'm at a used bookstore. like The Battle just the other day. I try to concentrate on buying only the books that I am relatively sure, 100% sure, I am never going to see, that no one is ever going to reprint for one reason or another. But something like this kind of book is something that I should never buy in a used bookstore because I'm going to get it. This is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. This is a new edition that's coming out in July. This is Hemingway's longest and most revered work, and in this new annotated edition, which includes supplementary material, drafts, and previously unpublished stories, Hemingway's son and grandson bring new life to the classic American novel, providing a rich context for a beloved epic and the man who created it. So this is the Hemingway estate keeping this book in copyright and out of the hands of Penguin Classics or the Library of America, and doing that by introducing new material, which can then be lumped under this copyright to keep this as a new book. But it doesn't matter. This is going to be an opportunity for me to reread For Whom the Bell Tolls, which I haven't read in a long, long time, and which, under normal circumstances, if I were a slightly more conventional reader, I would either have to get from the library or find at a used bookstore. I do not need to do that. I must remind myself of that. The next time I'm at the Brattle or a Goodwill or a Savers and I see a nice nifty paperback or hardcover edition of the USA trilogy by John Dos Passos or some Upton Sinclair novel that I haven't read in forever, my answer must be no. Don't bother to buy it. There's no pressing need for you to reread it, and when the time comes, you will be provided with it. The publishing world will send you a copy. And so I'm going to reread this and also have a chance to write about Hemingway, which is always great. Then this next one I have not read, even though it is not new. This came out a while ago. Yeah, this came out in November of last year, and I largely ignored it. I saw it, I knew it, I was aware of it, and I kind of ignored it. And I have a reason for not ignoring it now. This is a great big graphic novel by John Lee Anderson and Jose Hernandez of Che Guevara. This is Che, A Revolutionary Life. It's a naked hardcover, and it is just one gigantic graphic novel. That's all it is. It's just a huge graphic novel biography of Che Guevara. And I have a silly reason at first for wanting to read this. I'm glad that I found it. I'm glad that I have it. I will keep it. Certainly it'll go on my biography shelf. I don't have any other Che Guevara biographies. The silly reason why I want to read it is that the newest there's a YouTube channel, Epic Rap Battles of History. Maybe some of you will be familiar with it. It's epic rap battles between historical characters, and it's silly, but I love them. I absolutely love them. And the latest one to appear, or as its two white bebop guys would probably say, to drop, was a battle between Guy Fawkes and Che Guevara. And I thought there were parts of it that were kind of clever. And when I was watching it, I was thinking, I don't think I've ever read a biography of Che Guevara, and there have been hundreds of them. So I will be doing that with this, and I'll be doing it in the graphic novel form, which is fine by me, always interesting. Then this next one is YA. It's from a YA author I really like, so I'm looking forward to this one because this one starts a series. It's a lovely thing too. This is by Danielle Jensen, and it is Dark Shores, and it has a really neat premise. I don't know if you can make it out there. There are some visual clues to the premise, but let me give this to you. This is out already. I believe it came out on May the 7th. And this is, if I can unstick the pub sheet, that would be great. This is, some of you will know this author. Danielle Jensen wrote the Malediction series, and I really liked the Malediction series. I thought it was quite good. And this is the first book in a new series. A YA fantasy inspired by Greco-Roman history. Let's see here. Teriana is the second mate on the Quincence, a ship beholden to the goddess of the seas. Her people, the Marin, are born to the waves, and they also know there is land beyond the endless sea. There's only one rule: east must not meet west. Marcus is the commander of the 37th, the notorious legion that has led the mighty Kalendor Empire to conquer the entire East. His is a name whispered among the citizens with both awe and fear, but no one could guess at the dark secret that plagues him across even the deepest of seas. When a power-hungry ruler captures Teriana's crew and threatens to reveal Marcus's secret, Unless they help him conquer the unknown West, the two are forced into an unlikely and unwilling alliance, and probably into a relationship, judging by YA. YA tends to be like that. I don't hold that against YA at all. We'll just see. I like it if it's kept in proportion. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I liked the pacing, the dialogue, especially the emotion, the character emotions that were handled in the Malediction series. I liked all of it. It was all of it I thought was well done. So I'm all on board, no pun intended, for a Greco-Roman pirate adventure. And the next one is historical fiction. It's by an author of historical fiction that I really like. So again, this is new to me, but I'm going into it with plenty of optimism. And I think this comes out soon. I think this is right around the corner. Oh no, this comes out in July. Okay, sorry about that. But it sounds intriguing, and you'll know exactly why when I describe it to you. This is by Beatrice Williams, whose latest book I think was Summer Wives, but she's done a whole bunch of things. I always like her novels. They're well pounded together. And this is The Golden Hour. A very pretty thing. If I'm not mistaken, the longest thing I've ever read from her. And the longest thing maybe she's ever written. It's a historical novel, and you're going to notice some familiar names when I read about it. With lyricism and intelligence, Beatrice brings World War II era Nassau, Bahamas to life in a brilliantly original saga set inside the court of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Because the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, once the Duke of Windsor abdicated and was no longer king, something had to be done with them. They couldn't just stay in England. You can't have two kings in England. So something had to be done. Some work had to be found for them, and he was sent to be governor at Nassau after a number of complaints and a number of demands. But anyway, Bahamas, 1941. Newly widowed Lulu Randolph arrives in Nassau to investigate the new governor and his wife for a New York Society magazine. After all, American readers have an insatiable appetite for news of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, that infamous couple posted to this colonial backwater during World War II after their marriage nearly brought the British monarchy to its knees. What more compelling setting for a magazine feature than a wartime Caribbean paradise, a playground for kingpins of ill-gotten empires? Or so Lulu imagines. But as she infiltrates the Duke and Duchess's social circle and the powerful cabal that controls the island's political and financial affairs, she uncovers evidence that beneath the glister of Wallace and Edward's marriage lies a complex and even treasonous reality. In fact, Windsor-era Nassau roils with spies, financial swindles, and racial tension, and in the middle stands Benedict Thorpe, a scientist of magnetic charm and murky national loyalties. Inevitably, the willful and wounded Lulu falls in love. Then Nassau's wealthiest man is murdered in one of the most notorious cases of the century, and the resulting cover-up reeks of royal privilege. Benedict disappears without a trace, and Lulu embarks on a journey to London to unpick his complicated family history, a fateful love affair, a wartime tragedy, and a German mother. And needless to say, this is right up my street, because I am no fan of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Unlike some of their defenders, including a couple just recently, including Anna Pasternak, I don't think they were at all above betraying their country in order to get back into ruling it. I don't think that the Duke of Windsor, the former Edward VIII, was at all above being cajoled or bullied into betraying his country in order to be king of it, in order to be a kind of quisling king. And the story of the Duke and Duchess's time in the Bahamas is comparatively little told. There's a huge amount of documentation that, as far as I know, has never been consulted by anyone. I find it hard to believe that Beatrice Williams would have done that consulting, but I wouldn't put it past her. She's a very industrious writer, one way or another. Even if she doesn't, her speculation will still be lots of fun for me to read. Lots of fun. So I'm looking forward to this. And then the last thing that I want to show you is not going to look like this. This is a very advanced copy, but this is just going to be a normal book, of course. Right? It's The Long Southern Strategy by Angie Maxwell and Todd Shields, and I have it as a bound galley pages from Kinko's, but it's not going to look like that. And it came with a normal pub sheet, so we'll just, if I can unstick the pub sheet, I don't know what's going on in this room. Maybe Spider-Man paid a visit. This is probably what it's going to look like. But this is about the Southern strategy, American Republican Party politics, so it's going to be blood-curdling. The Southern strategy is traditionally understood as a Goldwater and Nixon-era effort by the Republican Party to win over disaffected white voters in the Democratic strongholds of the American South. To realign these votes with the GOP, the party abandoned its past support for civil rights and used racially coded language to capitalize on Southern white racial angst. However, that decision was but one in a series of decisions, and the GOP made not just on race, but on feminism and religion as well, in what Angie Maxwell and Todd Shield call the long Southern strategy. Because the Republicans didn't just stoke Southern racial fears, they also turned around their own policy of progressive views towards women's rights, including abortion rights and voting rights, equal pay in the workplace, all of that, which they had once championed. And they also turned around their non-interventionist, basically, keep at arm's length embrace of American evangelism by making themselves the party of tent revival Southern religion. Let's see here. In the wake of second wave feminism, the GOP dropped the Equal Rights Amendment from its platform and promoted traditional gender roles in an effort to appeal to anti-feminist white Southerners, particularly women. And when the leadership of the Southern Baptist Convention became increasingly fundamentalist and politically active, the GOP tied its fate to the Christian right. With original and extensive data on national and regional opinions and voting behavior, Maxwell and Shields show why all three of those decisions were necessary for the South to turn from blue to red in their book. And it's going to be ruthless to read. I dipped into it a bit and saw a fantastic epigraph that I want to, if I can find here for you. The authors picked the perfect epigraph to start their book. The problem with these unbound pages is that it's hard to navigate. I might not be able to find it. Let's see here. Yes, here we go. It's by Glenn Fieldman. The South did not become Republican so much as the Republican Party became Southern. This is probably going to be a fairly big book. It's tough to tell. It's always tough to tell when I get one of these things. But I'm going to be going through this at first for first blush impressions, but also to catch as many errors as possible. Typos, sentence fragments, stuff like that. I'm going to be sending a kind of a detailed email about this, and that'll be completely separate from the process of reviewing it down the line. Because did I mention this comes out in July? I think this comes out in July. Yes, mid-July from Oxford University Press. So I was there all along. I was there from the beginning with the Southern strategy. The Southern strategy, long or short, is the virus of Richard Nixon's evil that he implanted into the Republican Party, into the American body politic. Because people as evil as he is like to live on after they're dead. And you can only live so long just in your apparatchiks. So you've got Pat Buchanan making failed run after failed run at the presidency at the behest of his dead master. But you also have this strategy that is just noxious in the extreme, and that has done enormous harm to this country by splitting it in ways that it wouldn't be split by now. By 2019, most of those splits would not be this bad if they hadn't been exacerbated by this strategy, which is a failing strategy. I should point out it's a failing strategy. The demographic subheadings that the Southern strategy, long or short, has always appealed to have been shrinking since the 1950s. So it's doomed. It's a doomed, stalling, bitter strategy of a group of people who will do anything to hold on to power other than merit it. And as you can see, I'm already angry about the book, and I haven't even started it yet. But anyway, that is my Friday reads. We have the long Southern strategy, in which the authors point out that this was not just racial. It was also religious, and it was also anti-feminist. And they could go on from there. I'm hoping that they do. There are a lot of other manifestations of the long Southern strategy. Just a horrible devil's bargain, just all the way down the line. And quite literally that. Designed to anger, designed to divide, and designed to disenfranchise in order to hold on to power. Anyway, then there's what is probably going to be delightful historical fiction. The Golden Hour. The Duke and Duchess of Windsor in the Bahamas. What a great idea for a historical novel. And yet, I don't think I've ever read one about it. Then we have Dark Shores, the latest from the YA author of the Malediction series. Looking forward to it. Then we have a big, ambitious hardcover graphic novel, Life of Che Guevara, which I'm sure there's a lot in here that I don't know. And even the graphic novel parts of it might please me. So I'm looking forward to it. Then, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Ernest Hemingway, an up-and-coming writer that I'm expecting big things from. Then Chasing New Horizons, I'm going to give it one last read-through about an incredible mission. Just an incredible thing happening while all the rest of the world was going to heck in a handbasket. We were sending an emissary into the great dark, just out of pure curiosity's sake. New Horizons is not coming back to Earth. It's pure curiosity. It's the best in humanity. What's out there? Can we figure out a way to see it? I'd like to see it. Wonderful. And lastly, this. This is Unforgiven by Lisa Higdon, a Western romance to kinda, sorta offset the 40 Regency romances that I put today. Kinda, sorta, maybe just a little offset them. And that's it. That is my Friday reads for today. Sorry it's going up so late. Of course, as usual, I want to know what you're reading or going to read this weekend. But I'm going to wrap this up for now because I have a huge amount of work to do. So I will wind this up now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.